Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV and welcome to this UFO Disclosure 2021. Obama goes there. Yes, indeed, Obama has gone there. This is amazing. I came home from work today, switched on my computer like I always do first thing to check what's going on. There's a video from UFO Jesus. President Obama, the former president, has been talking about UFOs. And I thought, why me? But somehow it makes sense for reasons I'll explain in a minute. Like there's a kind of process here. But yeah, this is a program that I've never watched before. It's called the Late Show with James Corden, who I've never heard of before. I don't watch this program. It's an American program, and they interviewed Barack Obama, and what happened was, it's just a little 2.5-minute segment in the middle of it, because the host, this guy called James Corden, he turns to this band leader because like a lot of these novelty chat shows, these sort of light entertainment shows, they have a live studio band, and the leader of the band is this guy, this kind of black guy with sunglasses and weird hair. You know? He's called Reggie Watts, and Corden says, "Do you want to ask President Obama a question?" He says, "Yeah, well, seeing as President Obama's here, I just want to talk about the aliens," he said. I can't remember his exact words, but you can find this on YouTube. He said something like, "Look, I'm not saying they're definitely aliens, but do you have any theories about all this sort of thing?" And I kind of expected Obama to sort of laugh it off a little bit, like he did with Jimmy Kimmel a few years ago. Do you remember? I expected Obama to go, who knows? And he did make a joke later on, but this is what he said. He said something amazing, and I'm paraphrasing slightly here, but he says, "There's things I can't tell you on the air, but when I got into office, I did make some inquiries about whether there was some laboratory somewhere where they were holding alien bodies and spaceships. After these people did some research for me, the answer came back, it was there's not. But I mean, seriously, it is true, and I'm being serious now," he said. "There is footage and records of objects in the sky that have been collected from many, many sources, and we don't know what they are. We don't know what their trajectory and movements are, and we can't do that." And while this was going on, the people in the studio were laughing, and then Obama himself makes a joke about it. But that's very interesting, because when he was on Jimmy Kimmel, he stated specifically that he never made any inquiries about UFOs. That it was just like a novelty bit in there, you know, like he did the same with Clinton or Jimmy Kimmel. And Hillary as well, when she was running for president. But it's just an amazing thing for a man in his position, a former US president, to say. And it shouldn't, in a way, it doesn't surprise me, because we've had other people, which I've talked about on previous programs, previous videos in this series, saying the same thing. We've had like John Brennan, former head of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, former director of national intelligence. He's a cabinet post, very close to President Trump he was. And there's been Haim Shed, the Israeli Ministry of Defense scientist involved in the space program, and several others as well. It makes you wonder who's next. The Queen, Vladimir Putin, Russell Brand. Oh, he's done it, hasn't he? Russell Brand. Funny enough, several things have happened just while I was preparing this video, which I haven't actually had time to add to the video, because literally this was coming out as I was writing bullet points for the video. I've also been working on an article which I'm going to publish later this evening. But I just thought it does make you wonder who's going to come out and say something next. I reckon it'll be President Trump. I think it will be Trump, who, as you know, I regard him as the legitimate president of the United States at the moment. I've got a feeling this could be what he needs to get back on the game, on the politics game. Because if he can get in there before Biden does, and I mean, I personally think Biden's not going to say anything. I don't think Biden could actually articulate the bloody words UFO, let alone disclose anything about them. But this could be perfect for Trump if he was to come out and say something connected to this, rather like Obama has. And that'll be quite something. It feels as if there's some kind of process going on. Like this is a theatre. This is a theatre role. There's different scenes, different actors, different people coming out at different times, different settings. It's like there's some kind of narrative behind the scenes, and this is all organised. I could be just imagining that, but I don't think I am. I really don't think I am. I mean, this is a video. This probably won't be a very long video, actually. It's just one I decided to make sort of on the spot as soon as I saw this. And I started writing the article, and I thought I've got to do a video as well. Because this is really important. This is a major step, it really is. We also had a very interesting article from somebody, probably the last person I would have expected would come out about this, because this is someone called Ezra Klein. Now he's a top American journalist. He writes for the New York Times, and he wrote a really incredible article. Even if you think discussing aliens is ridiculous, just hear me out. That was the title of this particular article, and he goes into all kinds of philosophical areas. It's quite a deep, thoughtful piece about lots of associated effects of UFO disclosure on the public, and indeed the presence of extraterrestrial life, even if it was something related to SETI. But he says this. He says, what would happen? Imagine if there was a UFO crash in Oregon. An alien craft came down and everyone knew about it. So therefore we would have unequivocal, undeniable proof that we were not alone in the universe and that we were being watched. How would that affect human culture and society? That is a question that has been asked for decades, if not longer, in psychological think tanks and in dark windowless boardrooms, no doubt, and places like that. Yet now, that particular question is being presented to the public for consideration. And I think that's a very, very significant step forward. That is a very, very significant development in this story. Ezra Klein is not the sort of person who would talk about things crazy. He's a career journalist. He's a top person. You know, he's very, very senior in the journalistic profession. And he draws on the study of people such as, he draws on Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal's work, fellow writers for the New York Times. Also Gideon Lewis Krause as well. He mentions this idea. Gideon Lewis Krause talks about how it's no longer a taboo to talk about disclosure. He's a columnist for the New Yorker. You have to say columnist now, don't you? It's weird. It used to be columnist, but it's now columnist. I don't know why that is. Anyway, this is an English language and literature course. And I wonder, I think this may have been, this whole furore might have been started by this video that's come out. And this is a video that's been predicted for a long time. Now, as you know, Corbell and Knapp, they published the whole green triangle thing, which I talked about in my last video. The green triangle that Mick West says is a bogey, whatever that is. And he said at the time that the USS Omaha, that particular footage came from the USS Russell, which is a destroyer. There was another destroyer that also, I think USS Kidd also captured some footage, another destroyer. And he said, but the most interesting piece of material came from the USS Omaha. USS Omaha is a coastal patrol ship. It was off Florida, and it captured an image on a grayscale camera. It's not very good quality footage, I must say, but then that's what you expect. These military gun cameras are not designed for taking pretty pictures. They're designed to identify excuse me, they're designed to identify contacts and designate targets. So obviously, you know, this is why a lot of this footage is not terribly good quality. It's like grayscale sepia imagery, very low resolution, you know, covered by digits which indicate telemetry, things like that. But this was taken in the Combat Information Centre of this particular ship. And you can hear voices in the background. Now, Mick West says, oh, it's just something on the horizon, like a star that goes below the horizon, or a balloon. He thought it might be a balloon. Someone actually comments on UFO Jesus' Twitter feed, said, "Oh my goodness me, we're in big trouble if the Navy thinks that a balloon is a UFO. I wouldn't want to go ballooning if that's the case, when a fully armed warship can't tell the difference between you and little green men." But this guy said, he says, I used to be in the Navy. I used to sit in the Combat Information Centre and deal with these things, and I'll tell you what, it doesn't make sense. You can actually hear voices in the background. Behind this camera, the sailors actually who were operating the camera. And when the object goes apparently behind the horizon, you hear the word splash, splash, splash. Now, according to Corbell's contacts who were in the Navy, that's Navy talk for something. It doesn't mean it literally goes splash. It's just Navy talk for something impacting the surface of the sea. Could be a plane crash, could be a parachute is coming down, could be anything. So that's not just a star dipping below the horizon, is it, Mick? If that's the case. Unless it's all fake, of course. But the thing is, if it's all fake, you'll ask yourself, why is that? Why is it all fake? And of course, the big news, the previous big news before Obama opened his mouth last night on this programme, was of course 60 Minutes. Now 60 Minutes is a classic news and current affairs programme from the United States. It's the equivalent of BBC Newsnight, for example, only it's been going on a lot much longer. It's been going on for about since the 1960s. I think Walter Cronkite was in it originally, and it covers in 1 hour, hence the title. It covers a number of different subjects, and the various panelists talk about it. They used to show it actually on TV at night time, I remember. So I watched the 60-minute spot, and to be honest, there's nothing new really in the particular. It's a little 13-minute spot, takes up about a quarter of the programme, just under a quarter of the programme, and there's nothing in it that's actually particularly new. It's just an outline of the standard story which you've heard for the ATIP TTSA stuff, and there's interviews with the witnesses, Fravor, etc., and of course the inevitable, omnipresent Luis Elizondo, of course, is on there too. One thing that is interesting about this 60-minute spot is you hear the first testimony from a brand new witness. This is Alex Dietrich, somebody we knew existed and somebody we knew had commented, but this was the first time she'd actually appeared on camera, so that's very interesting. This is another pilot. This is actually I think she was flying the plane alongside Fravor, the wingman, I think they call it, or woman in her case. The wingwoman behind Fravor, who was actually, they were flying in formation, and she kept her plane sort of flying high up. Well, Fravor went down to investigate the tic-tac. He dived lower to investigate the tic-tac, and this is when he noticed how the tic-tac seemed to be able to copy his movements perfectly, even though he was in one of the most manoeuvrable aircraft known to man. This object could match his movements perfectly. It's worth seeing. Anyway, I was watching this. I remember thinking, I actually commented on this. I was actually commenting in the bullet points while I was making this very video. And then, what do you know? I go back to Facebook, and Michael, a friend of mine from the UFO Denmark, he's posted, oh, guess what? UFOs have been talked about on BBC Newsnight. Because I was just saying, with 60 Minutes is the equivalent of BBC Newsnight, I said. And I said, well, blimey, wouldn't it be amazing if now we've had it on 60 Minutes, maybe they'll have it on BBC Newsnight. And so that's when I saw Michael's post about BBC Newsnight. And I put it on, and sure enough, there was the BBC Newsnight were interviewing Gideon Lewis Krauss, talking about UFOs, and it was remarkably honest. I must say, remarkably open-minded. He said the kind of things that I would say, and the host asked him very good questions. The interviewer asked him very good questions. She said, so what could it be? And they discussed the three basic possibilities of what we could be dealing with. There's three possibilities. Basically, this is American. This is basically a secret American aviation project. It's quite a popular idea now, actually. I think there's a lot of people go for this one. And it involves possibly something that's not a conventional aircraft, in the sense it's not an aeroplane with a aerofoil. It's not a helicopter. That is basically an aircraft with a rotating aerofoil above it, and it's not an aerostat kind of thing like a balloon. A balloon is an aerostat. That's something that's lighter than air, the buoyancy. It's none of those things. It's something else. And this is a kind of aircraft that we've never known about officially before. This is one that possibly has the ability to control the force of gravity, and therefore provide itself with lift and propulsion. That is a distinct possibility. It's a distinct possibility that there are man-made craft that can do that. But then the question has to be, okay, if these exist, obviously they're not very secret if they're flying around harassing the US Navy. Well, if they're American, why are they harassing the US Navy? And I've been through this in previous videos in this series, but people say things like, oh, they're testing them, this is all part of a test, it's all part of a drill. Well, no, the US Navy is perfectly capable of arranging its own tests and drills. And one thing you don't do is, if you start launching surprise fake attacks on a fully armed aircraft carrier battle group with a live fire capability, that's a good recipe for getting people killed. This is why this nonsense about Rendlesham Forest, I don't know if you heard this ridiculous story that came, I think it was Dave Clark was going on about this. Oh, it was British Special Forces decided to play a joke on the American Air Force. Yeah, guys who carrying live rounds in their weapons on patrol to guard the base against invasion. Oh, let's just have a game with them, shall we? I'm sure they won't shoot. They'll know it's us. Let's pretend we're aliens. This is nonsense. This is complete lunacy that people believe this. I doubt if it's. This is why I don't think it's American. I don't think any of these sightings are American. I mean, if they are building anti-gravity aircraft, obviously these don't appear on the inventory of the U.S. Department of Defense or any other government agency or any private company we know of. So they're secret. They're part of the black budget. If they're part of the black budget, they'll be dealt with secretly, like the U-2 and the SR-71 was. They were flown from Area 51 under the strictest of secrecy. As I said in the previous episode, or the one before, Area 51 has just been testing. It looks like they've been creating secret airways, probably for new aircraft, which are no-fly zones. No one's allowed near them. Yet we see craft behaving in a very ostentatious manner. For example, the Phoenix Lights, which was a large object, confirmed by Governor Fife Symington of Arizona, that flew over the city of Phoenix. This is a city about the size of Birmingham, and brightly lit, visible shape. It was discernible by many, many witnesses on the ground. You see, you don't do that with a secret aviation project, even if you have a massive anti-gravity vehicle. Unless, of course, you want people to see your massive anti-gravity vehicle for some reason, in which case the question is why. It does so. I doubt very much if the ATIP footage involves anything American. Now, much more likely, I think, is this is not the most likely eventuality, but far more likely than it being American, is it's foreign in some ways. It's been created by some state or non-state actor that has access to this technology, which is not American. If that's the case, then I think Americans should hope very, very much that there's never a war doesn't break out between your country and this country. Could be China, could be Russia. It's pretty obvious, if that's the case, that your foreign adversary has reached a level of science and technology far beyond what you're capable of. If you had to go up militarily against any kind of institution that had that kind of technology, you couldn't win. They would beat you. So that's something you've got to hope for. It can't be ruled out that that's the case. It's obviously, if that's the case, then obviously we're dealing with they're obviously being aggressive towards the United States, possibly testing to see what would happen if they did invade or attack a US carrier battle group, to see what happens if they sent these anti-gravity craft in the vicinity. How sensitive are their sensors? How quickly can the fighters, the aircraft, respond? Things like that. That is a possibility. Funny enough, someone pointed out to me that China had these submarines. Indeed, there was actually a submarine caught near the United States. A Chinese submarine was caught near the United States a couple of years ago. Now what they do is some of these new submarines that China brought out, they have drones. Basically, the submarine just sticks the top of its conning tower above the water, releases this drone, and it flies off and can come back. The thing is, the drone they release is like it's not an anti-gravity device. It's actually it is a very manoeuvrable, very fast, but still conventionally powered and propelled helicopter drone. So that doesn't make sense. It's certainly not one of those. And of course, the third possibility, as Gideon Lewis Krauss said on BBC Newsnight, the third possibility is that it's an artificial object, which it obviously is, not made by the United States, not made by any foreign power, not made by human hands. And I personally think, not just because of my own beliefs, but because of sheer logic alone, that is probably the most likely eventuality. That's probably the most likely thing we're looking at here. And I think somebody somewhere wants to tell us. I think it's possible that for some reason a decision has been made to just allow us possibly to have the truth, to let us know what's actually happening, but without just dumping it all on us once, just without dumping it all on top of us at once. If they give us all the facts at once, I think they would, to quote David Bowie, they might blow our minds. And in fact, that's the title of an article, actually, I'm going to talk about in a minute. But I had a little bit of a laugh earlier today, actually, because someone I know on Twitter, this is a complete normie, someone who has no interest in UFO, paranormal or conspiratorial subjects at all, started complaining. She said, I tuned in a classic rock station on the radio, hoping to listen to some music. What do I hear? People talking about UFOs. I laughed my ass off. But that's actually, I tweeted back at her. Well, I retweeted her actually. That's a good sign, because it's what makes that a good sign is that the subject is now moving out of its usual areas. It's now moving onto platforms and into media, and it is being delivered to consumers, media consumers, who wouldn't normally be exposed to this. That's a good sign. It's a healthy sign. It's interesting. So that it could mean I think that could be very significant. Now, just to let you know, I've got another important thing to talk about in a minute, but just let me insert this little ad in here, right? UFO Truth magazine, issue 49, is now out. It's available. It contains an article by me, because I'm one of their columnists. An article by me, which is a book review. It's a review of Extraterrestrial by A.V. Loeb, who is, of course, A.V. Loeb is, of course, the person he's the astronomer who's written a book about Oumuamua, about how, excuse me, he thinks it's actually artificial. He thinks it's an artificial object from space, and I'll probably say more about that in the future, because that's no doubt that's going to come up again. So go read the magazine anyway, because I think you'll enjoy it. Now, Richard Dolan, as you know, I thought he was being a black pillar. Now, I've discovered since then, in fact, someone informed me on the live stream about this, that Richard Dolan has suffered a bereavement in the family, which could explain his slightly dour and morose position at the moment, in which case I've got to apologise for giving him a hard time, and obviously deepest condolences, Richard. I'm very sorry to hear that. R.I.P. etc. And that's very sad. It could explain his position, because he's been saying basically that the disclosure train's come off the rails. When the UAPTF report comes out next month, it's going to be just, a man walking dog on Cannock Chase sees light in the sky kind of thing. There's going to be nothing particularly revolutionary or even particularly interesting about what's going to appear. Now, Bryce Zabel takes a very different view, takes a much more optimistic view, and indeed you might have seen the debate that the two of them had, which I talked about before. This is why I wrote an article on her Panama Voice called Bryce Zabel's White Pill. Basically he's written an article, it's called Coming UAP Report May Blow Minds, to quote David Bowie. And he gives a list of everything that's happened so far, Brennan and Radcliffe, etc., and what they've been saying. Now, he doesn't mention, this was before the Obama stuff came out, but I'm sure that he would, if he'd written this article, if he's writing this article now, he would mention Obama and everything Obama was saying. But he did say that, he did quote that Radcliffe's successor in the position of Director of National Security, someone called Avril Haines, actually said Avril Haines actually said that she would honour the UAPTF clause in the act signed by President Trump in December. So that's all she said. She just said, I'm going to honour my commitment to that publication, which of course is the point of the UAPTF's constitution. It has to release a report every 6 months publicly. There will still be classified material, but there's going to be a public report every 6 months. Now, even Project Blue Book didn't do that. This is really quite incredible. Now, unlike Dolan, Bryce Zabel says that he thinks it won't actually be politically possible to delay or obfuscate anything, because he said there's people saying things like, oh, let's delay the UAPTF report for a couple of months, because we need to gather more data and more information, and then we'll publish it in full in October, for example, and it'll be much more interesting, there'll be a lot more in it. Well, that's code kind of for saying we don't want to publish it, isn't it? And in fact, Zabel says as much. Zabel says that that's going to be so obvious that it won't be possible politically for them to get away with that. It will not be possible. They'll have to publish the full thing. And obfuscation, that is any kind of if anything's in it that's in any way suspicious, that looks like it's contrived to deflect people's interest away from the UFOs phenomenon, that also is going to be very transparent, very obvious, and people are going to kick up about it, especially with all the journalists now talking about it and Obama talking about it and everything else. And Zabel also mentions, I think this is the most interesting thing, Zabel mentions this, and indeed Ezra Klein brings this up in his article. Harry Reid, former House Majority Leader, the senator, who says, basically, he was talking about the military-industrial complex, he was talking about Lockheed Martin, and about how they had UAP material in their possession for research. Now this, if by UAP material he means, oh, because they deliberately avoided actually confessing completely this point. But if by UAP material it turns out that they mean extraterrestrial, aliens, then that is essentially the red line that Richard Dolan talked about in his rather dismal article. The red line, that is the point over which disclosure with a capital D happens. So, and Zabel ends the article, people get ready. So, disclosure with a capital D is possible, and it's possibly going to happen next month. Now, Steve Bassett was interviewed in the old Current Bun. I don't know if you saw that. It's the Sun newspaper, it wasn't bad actually. It was just the usual stuff. I mean, if you follow Steve's work, you won't learn anything new from it. But Steve did say he thinks disclosure is possible within a few weeks. Now, Steve is always saying this. He's always saying this. It's always going to be a few weeks or a few months away. But even a stopped watch is right twice a day. What if this time is different? What if this time he's right? I wonder. I think possibly this is going to be the best chance we have if willing disclosure is possible. And this came up on the Kev Baker show actually on Monday night. I brought this up with Kev. If you want to check that out on his channel, on True Frequency Radio, I mean. if we don't get disclosure with a capital D, what will it be? It'll be something else. What will it be? See, of course, the possibility exists, and I know some people think this, and some people are so certain of this that they've eliminated all other possibilities. That this whole thing is a massive double bluff. It is disinformation from start to finish. And that what they're gearing us up for is something quite sinister. It's very often it looks like if this is the case, then it certainly is something very sinister. The fake alien invasion scenario. It may well start because a fake alien invasion scenario would probably start off with something like this. And I've always said, you know, that the most likely disclosure we're going to get first is fake disclosure. And readers of the Roswell trilogy, Roswell Rising, A Novel of Disclosure by Ben Emlyn Jones, available at all good bookshops now. Yeah, as you know, if you've read my book, you'll know that in the story in the novel of Disclosure, that's exactly what happens. If real life imitates what happens in my novel, then what you are dealing with is indeed a setup to some massive lie about extraterrestrials and what they are. Maybe it's like what Carol Rosin says. If so, we've got to be on our guard against that. We really do. On the other hand, if we are excessively cynical and we just, you know, we do the old arms folding, I can't be taken in, you know, everything's a conspiracy and everyone's a shill except me thing, right? If we do that, then we'll miss out on this opportunity. So it's a bit of a dilemma. It's questioned. I think the question you have to ask yourself is, if you are one of these shillheads, you've got to ask yourself, are you serving humanity or are you serving your own ego? Because I think the answer will be the latter. On the other hand, if you are 100% certain that the government is going to be honest and that this is the end of this story is going to be some kind of real life revelation without any deception at all, then that also I think is rather naive. I think we've got to be prepared for everything, you know. We've got to be prepared for either eventuality. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, as they say. I'm taking the middle ground on this, and I'm going to wait and see which way it goes. I think that is the wisest solution for this. It can't be the pace that this is all travelling at, though. It can't be long now. It really can't. I mean, it's really, if anything, it's accelerating. If you consider how soon Obama came out with his little thing on this show, and I don't believe for one moment it wasn't scripted. Of course, it could be that this guy, the Reggie Watts, the band leader, might have decided, you know, that might not have been scripted. But Obama's response would have been prepared. He'd have known if in advance what he was supposed to say if someone asked him about this. And this was only literally days after Ezra Klein's article, which came only days after the Omaha footage was released, which, like I say, is only a couple of weeks after the Russell footage was released, and still about the Omaha footage Corbell and Knapp brought out. Which means the pace is actually accelerating exponentially, which means could be anything. I mean, I could almost anything could happen within 24 hours, in which case I'll have to make another video, won't I? Which is why I think I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there because it's not a very long video I've made now, and I think I'll leave it there because probably I'm going to have to come back to this subject very soon. So we'll cross the bridge when we come to it with another video. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching this particular video, UFO Disclosure 2021. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order.